The Cursed Drum of Nyameke. In the quiet town of Nyameke, there was a legend that everyone knew. It was about an old drum called the Drum of Nyameke. This drum was kept hidden away in the town's oldest building, the library. People said the drum was made by a powerful sorcerer long ago. He trapped evil spirits inside it, and if anyone played the drum, they would release these spirits, bringing bad luck and scary things to the town. Most people in Nyameke were too scared to go near the drum. They believed in the legend and didn't want to risk bringing any trouble. But there were 4 friends who were curious and brave: Kofi, Ama, Yaw, and Efua. They were all about 12 years old and loved exploring. They had heard the stories about the drum, but they didn't believe in ghosts or curses. They thought it was just a silly tale to keep children from playing in the old library. One hot afternoon, Kofi came up with a plan. "Let's go see the drum," he said excitedly. "It's just a story, and we're old enough to handle it." Ama, who was always up for an adventure, nodded. "Yeah, let's do it. What's the worst that could happen?" Yaw was a bit hesitant, but didn't want to be left out. Efua, the quietest of the group, agreed too, even though she felt a little scared. So, they made a plan to meet at the library after school. The library was a big old building made of stone. It looked mysterious, especially as the sun began to set. They sneaked in through a window, knowing the librarian wouldn't be there so late. Inside, the library was dusty and dark. The air felt thick, and there was a strange silence. But the 4 friends didn't mind. They were excited about their secret adventure. They made their way to the back room, where the drum was kept. It was a small room, and the drum sat in the center on a wooden stand. The drum was old, with strange carvings on it that looked like faces. Kofi, being the bravest, walked up to the drum and touched it. "See? Nothing scary," he said, laughing. Ama joined him, looking at the carvings closely. Yaw and Efua stood back, feeling a bit uneasy. "Let's play it," Ama suggested, grinning. Before the others could protest, she grabbed the drumsticks lying next to the drum and gave it a loud beat. At first, nothing happened. The friends laughed, thinking the legend was just a silly story. But then, the room grew colder, and the air felt heavier. Suddenly, the drum started beating on its own. The sound was loud and deep, echoing through the library. The friends froze in fear. The faces on the drum seemed to come alive, twisting and moving. A cold wind blew through the room and the lights flickered. Then shadows began to appear around them, strange and ghostly. They heard whispering voices, low and chilling, but couldn't understand the words. Kofi tried to act brave. "It's just a trick. Someone's playing a joke on us," he said, but his voice was shaky. Ama, Yaw, and Efua were too scared to speak. The shadows grew darker and seemed to move closer to them. "We have to go," Efua finally shouted. She grabbed Ama's hand, and they all ran out of the room, the drum's ghostly beats following them. They didn't stop running until they were out of the library and back in the street, gasping for breath. But the strange things didn't stop there. That night, all 4 friends had nightmares. They saw the same thing: the faces on the drum, the whispering shadows, and the cold wind. The next day, bad things started happening in the town. People got sick, crops failed, and even the weather turned strange, with sudden storms and strange fog. The friends were terrified. Playing the drum, they didn't know what to do. They decided to go back to the library and try to fix their mistake. They thought that if they could play the drum again, maybe the spirits would go back inside it. So one evening, they sneaked back into the library. This time, the air felt even colder, and the shadows seemed darker. They found the drum, but something was different. It looked more menacing, and the carvings seemed to glare at them. Yaw hesitated, then picked up the drumsticks. His hands were shaking, but he managed to beat the drum, just as Ama had done before. The drum made a deep, echoing sound, but this time it was followed by a loud crack, like a thunderclap. Suddenly, the room was filled with a bright light. The friends covered their eyes, and when they opened them, They saw a figure standing before them. It was the spirit of the sorcerer who had made the drum. He looked angry, but also sad. "Why did you disturb the drum?" he asked in a booming voice. The friends explained everything, shaking with fear. The sorcerer listened and then sighed. "I trapped the spirits to protect this town," he said. "But now that you've released them, you must make a choice. You can either set them free forever, which will cause more chaos, or you can trap them again. But it will take a great sacrifice." The friends looked at each other, scared and confused. But then Efua stepped forward. "We can't let the town suffer," she said, her voice trembling. "We'll do whatever it takes." The sorcerer nodded and told them they needed to play a special rhythm on the drum, one that required all of them to play together. He also warned them that it would take a part of their energy, but it was the only way. With shaking hands, the friends took their places around the drum. The sorcerer guided them, and they started playing the rhythm. As they played, the drum glowed, and the shadows in the room began to swirl around them. It felt like the very air was vibrating with power. It was exhausting, and the friends felt their energy draining away, but they kept going. Finally, with a last, loud beat, the drum stopped glowing, and the shadows vanished. The room was silent, and the air felt warm again. The sorcerer smiled. "You have done well," he said. "The spirits are contained and the curse is lifted. But remember, never play the drum again, or the curse will return." With that, he disappeared, and the friends were left alone in the quiet room. They were tired but relieved. They knew they had done the right thing. The next day, things in the town started to get better. The people recovered from their illnesses, the weather improved, and the crops began to grow again. The friends were heroes, though they never told anyone what they had done. They learned a valuable lesson about respecting the old stories and the power they held. And so, the drum of Nyameke remained in the library, untouched and silent. The friends grew up, and the town continued to thrive, always remembering the lesson of the cursed drum. And though they never spoke of it, they would sometimes visit the library, just to make sure the drum stayed quiet and the spirits stayed asleep. The friends continued to grow up in the town of Nyameke, carrying with them the memory of that terrifying night and the lessons it had taught them. They never spoke openly about what had happened, but the experience bonded them in a way that nothing else could. They often visited the library, where the drum was kept, but they never touched it again. It became a symbol of their shared secret and the burden of responsibility they had taken on. As the years passed, the four friends took different paths in life. Kofi became a teacher, inspired by the importance of knowledge and stories. He loved sharing local legends and history with the children, always reminding them to respect the past and its mysteries. Amma pursued her passion for music, becoming a well-known musician in the region. She often sang songs inspired by the stories and lessons from their youth, though she never included the tale of the drum. Yaw, who had been the most skeptical about the supernatural, turned to science, becoming an engineer. He worked on projects to improve the town's infrastructure, always seeking practical solutions to problems. Efua, the quietest and most introspective of the group, became a writer. She wrote many stories and poems, subtly weaving in themes of respect for tradition and the unknown. Despite their busy lives, the friends remained close. They met regularly, especially around the time of the full moon, the anniversary of the night they had played the drum. They would sit together, often in silence, sometimes sharing their thoughts and fears. The bond between them grew stronger over the years, rooted in their shared experience and the secret they kept. One year, on the eve of the full moon, Kofi, Amma, Yaw, and Efua gathered at Kofi's house. The night was unusually quiet, and a strange sense of anticipation hung in the air. They talked about their lives and the changes in the town, which had grown and prospered since that fateful night. However, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was different this time. As they talked, Amma brought up something that had been troubling her. "Do you ever wonder if we really contained all the spirits that night?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The others looked at her, surprised. It wasn't like Amma to be uncertain or fearful. Kofi, always the rational thinker, shrugged. "The sorcerer said we did, and everything got better afterward." "Why do you ask?" Amma hesitated, then continued. "Lately, I've been having strange dreams. They're not like the nightmares we had after that night, but they feel connected. In my dreams, I see the drum, and it's glowing again. I hear whispers, like before, but they're calling out to me." Efua, always sensitive to the emotions of others, leaned forward. "I've been having dreams too," she admitted. "I see the drum, and it's like it's waiting for something." Yaw, who had been quiet, nodded slowly. "Me too. I thought it was just my mind playing tricks, but it feels real, like a warning." Kofi frowned, troubled by this revelation. "Why haven't we talked about this before?" he asked, looking at each of them. Amma shook her head. "I didn't want to worry anyone, but the dreams are getting stronger, and I think something is trying to get our attention." The room fell silent as they considered the possibility. The air felt heavy, filled with unspoken fears. Finally, Efua spoke. "We need to check the drum, just to be sure." The suggestion was met with mixed feelings. None of them wanted to go back to the library, especially not to face the drum again. But they knew Efua was right. If something was wrong, they had to know. They couldn't risk the safety of their town or ignore the warning signs. They decided to go to the library that night, under the full moon, just as they had done years before. The streets were empty as they walked, the town quiet and seemingly asleep. The library stood as a silent sentinel, its stone walls looking even more imposing in the moonlight. They entered through the same window, slipping into the darkened building. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The friends made their way to the back room, their footsteps echoing in the silence. When they reached the room, they saw the drum just as they had left it. But something was different. The air felt colder, and the carvings on the drum seemed more pronounced, almost as if they were watching. Kofi, ever the brave one, stepped forward. He reached out, but before he could touch the drum, Amma grabbed his arm. "Don't," she whispered urgently. "We need to be careful." Yaw nodded in agreement. "We don't know what might happen." Efua, looking pale but determined, stepped closer. "We need to figure out if the spirits are still trapped. If not, we have to find a way to contain them again." As they debated their next move, a sudden gust of wind blew through the room, extinguishing their flashlight. In the darkness, they heard a faint drumming sound, growing louder. Panic set in as they realized the drum was playing on its own again. The room filled with an eerie glow, and shadows began to swirl around them. The friends huddled together, terrified. They knew they had to act quickly. Amma, recalling the rhythm they had used to contain the spirits, grabbed the drumsticks. She hesitated, looking at the others. "Are we ready?" she asked. Kofi, Yaw, and Efua nodded, steeling themselves. They began to play the rhythm, their hands shaking. The drum beats echoed in the room, resonating with the strange, supernatural energy. As they played, the shadows thickened, and the air grew colder. The friends felt the same draining sensation they had experienced years ago. It was as if the drum was pulling their energy, feeding on their fear and determination. But they kept playing, knowing they couldn't stop. They had to finish the ritual, or the spirits would be free. Just as they thought they couldn't continue, the air seemed to crackle with energy. A blinding light filled the room, and the drum beats stopped abruptly. The friends collapsed, exhausted. When they opened their eyes, the room was quiet, and the shadows were gone. The drum sat silently, as if nothing had happened. A figure appeared before them, not the sorcerer from before, but an old woman dressed in traditional robes. Her eyes were kind, but her expression was serious. "You have done well, my children," she said in a gentle voice. "But the spirits are restless. They were not fully contained, and your actions tonight have awakened them once more." The friends stared in shock. The woman continued, "The spirits were angered because they were wronged in life. They seek justice and peace. To truly calm them, you must uncover the truth of their story and make amends." Kofi, still panting from the exertion, managed to speak. "How can we do that? We don't know what happened." The woman smiled sadly. "You must seek out the oldest stories, the ones whispered in the dark. Listen to the elders of your town and they will guide you. The spirits seek acknowledgement of the wrongs done to them and a proper honoring." With that, the woman vanished, leaving the friends in the dimly lit room. They were exhausted but understood what they needed to do. The next day, they began their quest for the truth. They visited the elders of Nyameke, asking them to tell the oldest stories they knew. At first, the elders were reluctant. Many of the old stories were considered taboo, dark tales that were best forgotten. But when the friends explained the situation, the elders agreed to help. They gathered in the town hall, where the oldest woman, Nana Aqua, began to speak. Nana Aqua told a tale of betrayal and sorrow. Long ago, the land of Nyameke had been ruled by a wise but strict chief. During his reign, there was a great famine, and the people suffered. A group of villagers, desperate and starving, went against the chief's orders and stole from the sacred grove, a place believed to be protected by powerful spirits. When the chief discovered their actions, he was furious. He punished the villagers harshly, banishing them and cursing their families. The spirits of the sacred grove, angered by the theft and the harsh punishment, cursed the land, causing the famine to worsen. The banished villagers eventually died, their spirits restless and filled with anger. The sorcerer, hoping to protect the town, created the drum to trap these spirits, but their anger was never truly soothed. They needed acknowledgement and a proper ritual to release their anger and allow them to rest in peace. The friends listened intently, realizing the depth of the situation. They knew what they had to do. They had to honor the spirits and the wronged villagers. The friends, with the help of the elders, organized a ceremony to honor the spirits and acknowledge the wrongs done to them. The entire town came together, offering prayers and apologies for the past. They offered food, water, and traditional music to soothe the spirits. As they performed the ceremony, the air seemed to lighten, and a gentle breeze blew through the town. The friends felt a sense of peace, knowing they had done the right thing. The drum, once a symbol of fear and mystery, was now a symbol of healing and reconciliation. After the ceremony, the strange occurrences in the town ceased. The nightmares stopped, the weather stabilized, and a sense of peace settled over Nyameke. The friends continued their lives, always remembering the lesson they had learned.